Hey folks, Fourmyle here, coming at you with something that I've been playing for the past few months and something that a few of you have been talking about a while, wondering why I haven't been posting any videos about this particular game, and I wanted to go into why I have not been posting Let's Play videos of this game. Let's talk about The Division. Namely, why I haven't done a Let's Play of The Division, even though I've recorded plenty of video and have had people request it repeatedly. If I were to pare The Division down from its various gameplay elements, its broad-based themes to a single should you play this game summary, I'd have to say that The Division is trying so hard to be effortlessly successful that it's physically painful to watch. That doesn't mean The Division isn't a good game worth playing, but rather that making a multi-part series of heavily edited videos depicting the moments where The Division shines would be a 2-video series at best. Let me explain, starting with the story. Beyond the tawdry stock Tom Clancy in a tin can plot, biological disaster in New York City, save the city because patriotism and you're a government agent, do your job. There's little to motivate your character in The Division. Consequently, there's little to keep the player interested in the story, since it all amounts to a grandiose version of, hey, stuff got fucked up, fix it with your gun, okay, thanks, bye. This is, simply put, bare-bones storytelling, and while The Division hints at a deeper dive into the semi-post-apocalyptic New York near the end of the main game, no spoilers, it ultimately left me feeling like I was better off reading a tag-along pamphlet for the story rather than have Fei Lao, the Division commander, cite it rote throughout the game. And that's sad, because The Division creates a solid cast of characters and adversaries to interact with, without ever fleshing them out. My biggest disappointment has to be the cleaners, former New York sanitation workers who, upon having their homes and families ravaged by bioterrorism, come to the conclusion that the only way to save what remains of their tattered city is to burn the infection out, literally with flamethrowers and napalm. I would love to have seen the whole coming of age of the cleaners fleshed out more, but the game drops you in New York weeks after the cleaners and other enemies have already established themselves as threats. This means that the cleaners and your other adversaries are really nothing more than targets with their biographies taped to their soon-to-be ventilated chests. They're mere pawns for gamers to mow over without thought. The Rikers, for example, escapees from Rikers Island, characterize this more than any other group. They're criminals. Kill them. Get their loot. Rinse and repeat as necessary. And that's all the NPCs are good for in this game. They don't further the plot. They exist solely to be killed for your own character's growth. Which brings us to the end game, or rather a pale simulacrum of an end game, a plump, delicious meal promised at game release that turned out to be little more than an emaciated run-and-gun festival for better loot, better gear, still better loot, still better gear, punctuated by moments of sheer heart-pounding excitement that are fleeting and all too rare. I'm talking about the Dark Zone, the forbidden territory in the middle of Manhattan where mortal souls fear to tread, where enemies are stronger and you must face against other players for high-level gear and weapons. On paper, this sounds like an extraordinary melting pot of deadly action and adventure, guaranteed to keep players busy for months. And it certainly kept me busy at the time of this video. I've sunk in over 145 hours into this game. Probably 120 of those into the end game alone, and I can confidently say that the end game is broken as hell. Let me preface by saying that I am a solo player. I do not trust other players in The Division, nor should they trust me. I am wholly unpredictable and am known, on occasion, to not even give a single fuck. That being said, The Division is not a game for solo players. The hardest of the endgame daily missions that guarantee you a certain level of gear and credits for completing them, can only be done with a 4-man team. The first of The Division's incursions, Falcon Lost, is so hard that there's a required gear score threshold you need to meet before you're even allowed to play the mission. And that's when Falcon Lost is even working at all. I mean, look at this. I can't even get there to start the mission. But I digress. The Dark Zone and many endgame missions are for a team. If you venture into the Dark Zone alone, especially on a weekend, you will be hunted down and you will die. Even if you aren't carrying any loot, Even if you're just minding your own business, you will die. This makes leveling up your character gear and weapons to where you can function properly in the Dark Zone a daunting, almost nauseating task. In order to level up, you need to kill enemies in the Dark Zone. You can't kill enemies in the Dark Zone because you keep getting killed by other players in the Dark Zone. To make yourself harder to kill, you need gear you can only really get in the Dark Zone or by spending countless hours grinding endgame daily missions. You see where this is going, right? It's a vicious circle, compounded by the fact that you will inevitably run into people that are just so much better than you at the game and who will wipe you off the face of the map without a second thought. This makes the past half hour you spent grinding for gear all the more depressing. And it doesn't help that the missions you do for better loot are some of the most boring I've ever played. An example, Falcon Lost. We talked about this earlier. At its core, Falcon Lost is Horde Mode Plus. You're stuck in a big room with waves of enemies and an APC you need to blow up every 3 or so rounds. Super. The rest are just recycled story missions with leveled up enemies. This doesn't make for the most riveting of gameplay. Now some of you may say, Fourmyle, that's just part of the game. Lighten up, join a party, run the Dark Zone with other folks. And I have, and do. But that doesn't change the banality, the sheer boringness of the Division's endgame. You get better gear and weapons for the sake of getting even better gear and weapons. To kill other players for even better gear and weapons. It just doesn't end. On its own, the end game would be challenging enough, even in a high-level party. But then you get the glitches. So many glitches. And the hacking. Hacking is a major problem in the Division, especially on PC, with ghosting and damage boosting, people zipping around the map, stealing objectives, and killing players with nothing to stop them. And yeah, Ubisoft and Massive have taken steps to ban hackers, but the fact of the matter is that for PC gamers trying to enjoy the Division, and some Xbox and PS4 players too, hacking and exploits are keeping us out of the Dark Zone. It's just not possible to keep up with players who are getting the best gear illegitimately without you yourself taking advantage of the Division's yet-to-be-addressed exploits. I have hope that Ubisoft and Massive will address these in the near future, but exploits and hacking themselves are but another drop in the bucket that is the Division's woes. So let's recap. The end game is boring, the missions are repetitive, leveling up is a slog through grinding hell for marginally better gear. If you can even get that from the paltry drops you do get. You're constantly pitted against better equipped players, legitimately and otherwise, that mow you down without the common courtesy to say hello first. And yet, I can't help but love the Division. I want Massive and Ubisoft to succeed in making this franchise an enduring, Destiny-esque property. Hell, I'm doing a cosplay of the Division, and it's not a cheap one either. And there are genuinely fun moments to be had in this game. If there weren't, I wouldn't still be playing it, masochist that I am. So no, I won't be doing any Let's Plays of the Division. At least nothing I have planned yet, and not until they patch a lot of things. But that doesn't mean I don't hope this game gets better and better over time. Honestly, if you haven't played it yet, go ahead and try it. I mean, the worst that could happen to you is... What the fucking shit?